All right, dear friends. So today I'm going to continue my teachings on Bible prophecy as far as the time of tribulation, the day of the Lord, the end times are concerned, because we are hearing a lot about that these days from prophecy teachers, from pastors, teachers of the Bible and such, and even from the mainstream media. You hear talks about Armageddon, we hear talks about the apocalypse, we hear talks about rapture, etc., indicating Jesus' second coming, that it is imminent. Okay. However, before we actually see where we are on the prophetic timetable, I think it is important for us to understand what exactly does tribulation, the word tribulation, or what is the tribulation? What does it mean? Who will it affect and how long will it last? Okay. So, in short, the tribulation refers to a period of time which begins with a series of catastrophic worldwide events, among which warfare is a prominent one, but not the only one, okay? It begins with that, and then it ends with the sign of Christ Jesus appearing up in the heavens. We will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven. And then comes the battle of Armageddon, so called, and then comes the end when Jesus returns to the earth and lands on the Mount of Olives. So you could say that it is a period of time from the beginning of sorrows, as defined in Matthew 24:8, up until the second coming of Jesus Christ, as we read about in Revelation chapter 19. So let's study what is meant by tribulation and who will it affect and how long will it be. So in Matthew 24:3, the disciples asked Jesus for the timing of his second coming and of the end of the world. They did not ask about the end of Israel. Israel is in the news very prominently these days, especially among prophecy teachers. But the disciples' question, when we look at it carefully, it was not just about the end of Israel, but of the whole world. And we can read that in Matthew 24:3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? Okay, they didn't say the end of Israel, they said the end of the world. Jesus had taught them beforehand about his own death and resurrection, but also about the end of the present world before his kingdom would come on earth upon his return. So the disciples inquired about the timing of his second coming, which would obviously be preceded by the end of the present world, not the end of the earth, but of the world that man has built upon the earth since the days of Noah. Please keep in mind that the end of the world concerns the whole world, not just a single nation such as Israel. Even at the time of the prophets who prophesied judgment upon Israel and Judah, they also prophesied against Judah, meaning like the Jewish nation. Okay, the Jews are just one tribe out of the Hebrew people. The Hebrews were 12 tribes, okay? And the children of Judah, they are known as Jews. Now, the Benjamites also joined with Judah, so generally the people of Judah were the two tribes of Judah and Benjamin, and they were known as the Jews, but the rest of the tribes were known as Israelites, okay? So when these prophets were prophesying, sometimes they prophesied against Israel, and sometimes against Judah, and sometimes against both, but they also prophesied against other kingdoms, and practically against all the countries and regions and peoples of the whole world. Jesus himself taught that the tribulation, or the time of sorrows, would come upon the whole earth and all kingdoms of countries, and upon all kingdoms of countries that are on the earth. For example, we can read in Luke 21:35, For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Jesus made it clear that tribulation would be visited upon all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Understanding end times prophecy begins with understanding that some form of tribulation, whose meaning we will study in a minute, but it means painful pressure, will be experienced by all of the people of the world, by all the people that dwell on the whole earth. Therefore, those who make videos sitting in a cafe, sipping a latte, prophesying that some rumored war in the Middle East means that the return of Jesus is imminent, that all end-time prophecies have been fulfilled, when they themselves have felt no tribulation, have felt no pressure in their lives, they are lying to you. We shall note that at least 3 times in Matthew 24, Jesus warned against deception, that even after a lot of the prophesied events that he himself was prophesying would have come to pass, the end will not be yet. He said that more than once, the end is not yet. Go you not after them. That we should not be deceived by these people who are telling you that the end is now at the door, that his coming is at the doors. It is not. So the great deception will be in people leading others astray, that the end has arrived and that Jesus' coming is imminent, when it will yet be far away. Jesus prophesied about certain events that he named the beginning of sorrows in Matthew 24:8. We have not yet experienced all the events of the beginning of sorrows, so how can we be at the end? We can read in Luke 21:8, and he said, "Take heed that ye be not deceived, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and the time draweth near. Go ye not therefore after them. But when ye shall hear of wars and commotions, be not terrified. For these things must first come to pass, but the end is not by and by," meaning the end would not be just then. Are there not armies of false prophets in churches in every street corner in America and other parts of the world, not only screaming from the rooftops that the end is near, the end is here? But Jesus warned us not to go after them, that the time of his coming is not yet near, because the events that he prophesied have not hardly begun to come to pass, never mind be at the end. Nor is it yet the time of the end, even when we have heard of rumors of wars. Understand that there is a difference between merely hearing of wars and actually experiencing some form of tribulation ourselves. Whether it be through warfare or earthquakes or disease outbreaks, which Jesus called pestilences or famines. Tribulation must come upon the whole world in diverse places, as Jesus taught, and in diverse forms, not just as a single war somewhere far away. Matthew 24:8 is very clear that much catastrophic destruction of the world and much loss of life would occur in diverse places around the world, not just in some small, minuscule region of the world. The whole world must come under attack by various apocalyptic calamities, whether by warfare or by natural disasters or by hunger and famine or by deadly infectious diseases and by other catastrophic events. Jesus commanded us to watch for the fulfillment of all the events that he prophesied, not just a single event, such as the rumored war in the Middle East that is going on right now. The safest way to not be deceived is to understand that as a snare shall it come upon all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. It is obvious that you and I are included in all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. I hope you're dwelling on the earth and not in the sky somewhere, if you're listening to my words, right? So we are all dwelling on the face of the whole earth. So unless we begin to experience the painful, even deadly pressures of the tribulation that Jesus prophesied in the Gospels and in the book of Revelation, the end cannot possibly have come or be even near. Let us study now the word of the meaning tribulation as used by Jesus in Matthew 24:29 and in many of the scriptures in the New Testament. So the word tribulation in Strong's Concordance is G2347, and it is the Greek word thalipsis. And from Strong's definition, we read pressure, or figuratively afflicted or affliction, anguish, pain, burdened, persecution, tribulation, and trouble. And then if you go to the word study dictionary, it tells us to crush, to press, to compress, to squeeze, to break, trouble, affliction. The word tribulation literally means crushing pressure, as being squeezed in a vice. And since tribulation will be upon the whole world, it means that all the people of the world that dwell upon the earth must experience some form of intense pressure. They must suffer tribulation in their own lives in some form or the other. We must also define what is meant by world for each one of us. For the word world has a different meaning for every person. What is my world is the question that each one of us needs to answer. My world is not the Middle East, nor is it Russia, or Ukraine, or China, or some other faraway place that I will probably never see in my life. My world is the place where I live, my city or town and my country. When sorrows, that is painful tribulation or painful pressures arrive in my world, that is in my city and in my country, then I will know the sorrows will have begun. Worldwide sorrows, that is. And remember that the sorrows must be worldwide, not just in one small part of the world. News reports of some faraway distant wars in places that most people can't even find on a map, let alone visit, is not evidence of worldwide tribulation, which must precede the second coming of Jesus Christ. We must also keep in mind that that time will just be the beginning of sorrows. It will yet be far from the end. So, I will not believe that Jesus' coming is imminent at this present time in 2026. The tribulation or the sorrows, that is the birth pangs of Jesus' kingdom, will be visited upon the world in stages, not all at once, in a short time period of just 7 years. The events up until Matthew 24:8, which correspond 24:7 and 8, which corresponds with the opening of the first four seals of Revelation 6, will be the beginning stage of sorrows. Keep that word beginning. Jesus said in Matthew 24 that this is the beginning of sorrows. Just as birth pangs of a woman in labor or childbirth intensify as she gets closer to the time of the birth, there will be a middle stage of sorrows from about Revelation 6:9 till the time of the Antichrist. The last stage, the end of sorrows stage, signaling the end of the tribulation, will be the most intense and painful stage, which will come at the end of the tribulation, which in my understanding will be the period of time from about Revelation 16 into Revelation 19, from the opening of the pouring out of God's vials of wrath unto the judgment of Babylon, and finally the battle of Armageddon in Revelation chapter 19. Now you keep in mind that the battle of Armageddon, which is really not a battle because the armies will gather, but Jesus will just come and destroy them, okay? That comes at the very end, just prior to Jesus' second coming. The end does not begin with Armageddon. The end ends with, end of the world ends with the Battle of Armageddon. So why are people talking about Armageddon at this time when there is so much more that Jesus prophesied that has not even yet begun to happen? Now let me share with you my understanding that sorrows or tribulation or pressure does not just mean warfare with guns and bombs, since most of the countries in the world will never be bombed or suffer tribulation pressures through warfare. However, painful pressures, see right now you're hearing in the news reports, for example, some people are claiming that the U.S. has run out of missiles and they have to increase production just for this little war between Iran and Israel. Okay, now just imagine, like if this one little war has depleted so much of the ammunition, are there going to be even enough bombs to bomb every country in the world? No, there isn't going to be. Okay, there isn't enough armaments and enough weaponry and enough bombs to bomb every nation and every country. Therefore, tribulation must come upon most of the world in some form other than warfare. However, painful pressures, life-threatening pressures will come for most people in the world from economic crises and eventual financial economic collapse. For most people, the sorrows will begin not with bombs, but with banks which will fail and people will lose their money. And, not just money, people in third world countries like India, for example, where most people don't even have a bank account, they only have enough money for one day when they go to work. They will lose their jobs. And when they lose it, the loss of livelihood means that they have no food for the next day because they have no money. That is how catastrophic it will be when money fails, that Jesus told us it will. For most people, sorrows will begin not with bombs but with banks which will fail, and people will lose not just their money but their jobs and their employment and their source of income. And lack of money will lead to nation rising against nation. And as I taught you before, that the word nation means ethnos, that is, people against people, race against race, religion against religion, not just country against country. Warfare is between people within countries more than it is war between countries, although that will also happen eventually. So when your world, that is your city or country, begins to experience extreme financial economic pressures, then understand that it likely signals the beginning of sorrows. We had a preview of such economic devastation at the end of COVID, which affected the whole world. And again, these events must affect the whole world, not just one part of the world. Okay, but that was just a preview. I believe what must follow soon will be far more devastating and far more deadly for all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. People in most of the world are far from what is happening in the Middle East. They will never be bombed or have missiles rain down upon them. But if the price of oil triples, their life will experience pressures that will destroy far more lives than will ever be lost in the Middle East. Up until like a week ago or so, or 2 weeks ago, it used to cost me around $50 or $55 to fill up my tank with a tank of gas or petrol. And now it costs close to $80. Okay, so is that like money that I can't spend in other places, like on food, etc.? Does that bring pressure in my life? Yes, it does. And it is right now. Even that little change is affecting people worldwide. There have been reports, that there is not enough gas or liquid natural gas, which most people use for cooking in places like India, that there's a shortage. And people are even having trouble finding fuel to cook their meals. So are there pressures building? Oh, certainly they are. Okay. Just because of this so-called war. But it is not because bombs are falling on people, but because their life is being destroyed through economic pressures that are being building because of this alleged war. People in most of the world are far from what is happening in the Middle East. They will never be bombed or have missiles rain down upon them. But if the price of oil triples, their life will experience pressures that will destroy far more lives than will ever be lost in the Middle East. The price of food will rise, for example. The world in this time means the economy of the world. So look for the collapse of the world economy, not a rumored war in the Middle East, as a major sign of the beginning of sorrows. Now let's read through Matthew 24 and compare it with the book of Revelation to list most, if not all, of the signs that Jesus gave us, which we must watch for to know when the end will actually be at hand. We shall see that this list is quite long, and it's impossible for all the prophesied events to occur within a short period of just 7 years. So understand that the whole time of sorrows or the tribulation will last far longer than 7 years, and actually will be closer to 40 years in length from beginning to end. From the beginning of sorrows to the time that Jesus returns, it will be at least around 40 years. What follows is a list of prophesied signs and events. So that is the length of the tribulation. It's closer to 40 years than it is to 7 years. The 7-year teaching is a great big deception, and the love of many is going to wax cold because they will not be able to endure the fact that when they thought that the end had come, it had not. It had just begun. Okay? But if we understand what Jesus taught us, then we will not be expecting the end when it is not yet time for the end. So understand that the whole time of the sorrows, the tribulation will last far longer than 7 years, and actually will be closer to 40 years in length from the beginning to the end. What follows now, or will follow in the next part to this series on prophecy and the end times, will be a list of prophesied signs and events that Jesus commanded us to watch for, that will reveal to us where we are on the prophetic timetable and when we can be sure that the second coming of Jesus will be imminent. It will be at the doors. Okay? Jesus gave us enough sign that we should know that clearly. We should not be deceived or confused about the timing of his coming. All right. Thank you for listening. This is Paul Sandhu.
Christian, do not seek repose. Cast your dreams of ease away. You are in the midst of foes. Watch and pray. Watch and pray. Wicked forces, evil powers, gathered in unseen array. They wait for your unguarded hours. Watch and pray. Watch and pray. Put your heavenly armor on, where it always said to watch and pray. Hear, above all, hear your Lord. Love him, serve him, and obey. Treasure in your heart his word. Watch and pray. Watch and pray. Watch as if on that alone hung the issue of the day. Pray that victory shall be won.